We scaled back a lot this year, trying to just not grow more than we need, because I'm sure the other farmers out there can identify with maybe just having a little more than you needed. And because we've got a nice supply of full spectrum distillate in stock, we just decided to go with a small amount of triploid genetics this year.
That's Catherine Dubansky from Backbone Hemp in Garrett County, Maryland. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and today we're going to pick up where we left off on our last episode a couple of weeks ago, continuing to check in with growers around the country to see how spring planting's going. We're going to hear from Theo Wahquahboshkuk from Prairie Band Ag in Kansas, Ray DePriest from SunRay Hemp in Alaska, Caleb Kauffman from Lancashire Hemp Farms here in Pennsylvania, Ben Brimlow, lead agronomist at I&D Hemp in Montana, and of course, Catherine Dubansky from Backbone Hemp, who you heard in the intro. So first, we'll have a few words from our sponsors, and then we'll get right into it. This episode is brought to you in part by Westtown Bank and Trust. Most banks won't bank hemp-related businesses, and many of the ones that do only do so behind closed doors. But Westtown Bank doesn't just bank hemp, they embrace the entire industry. Westtown Bank has developed a full suite of business banking and payment processing solutions tailored specifically to the hemp industry. Their team of hemp experts provides the personal service your business needs so you can feel unquestionably safe and secure banking with Westtown. Find out why hemp banks here by visiting westtownbank.com/hemp. That's westtownbank.com/hemp. This episode is brought to you in part by I&D Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they are fully committed to the goodness of hemp. They've just redesigned their website too, so be sure to check out indhemp.com to learn more about the work they're doing. And you can keep up with I&D Hemp in real time by following them on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at I&D Hemp. This episode is brought to you in part by Impactful Ventures, an investment and incubation company focused on supporting startups and other initiatives that play a vital role in reversing the adverse effects of climate change. They strive to amplify enterprises which bring innovative green opportunities to the forefront and empower those making a significant impact for a sustainable future. You can learn more at impactfulventures.org. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for joining me this week. I'm excited to share these interviews about spring planting. I was working on this episode last week, intending to publish it last week, but last Wednesday we got the news that my father-in-law passed away. He had been suffering for a fairly long time, but he is at peace now, so there's much to be thankful for, but it's still, grief is hard. So anyway, I just sort of shut down everything last week and spent time with my wife and family. So anyway, thank you for your patience with me on that. So I'm back at it now, publishing this episode, and I was able to add in a couple more interviews. So anyway, before we get into that, I wanted to talk about something that I read just a couple of days ago. This was a piece in the New York Times. It's an opinion piece written by the economist Paul Krugman. The title of his essay is "What a Dying Lake Says About Our Future." It's about the Great Salt Lake and how it's drying up. Apparently now 2/3 of the lake's surface area is gone. So I guess that means that the lake is 1/3 of its former size, and this has all sorts of ecological implications. An increase in salinity in the water is going to cause a die-off of wildlife. The dried up areas could potentially lead to toxic dust storms rolling through the Salt Lake City metropolitan area. And they really don't have any way to mitigate this, no way to deal with it. There's no plan, there's no strategy. And what Krugman says he finds really scary is what the lack of an effective response to the lake's crisis says about our ability to respond to the larger, indeed existential threat of climate change. And he says if you aren't terrified by the threat posed by rising levels of greenhouse gases, you aren't paying attention, which, sadly, many people aren't. And those who are or should be aware of that threat but stand in the way of action for the sake of short-term profits or political expediency are, in a real sense, betraying humanity. Let me read that again. And those who are or should be aware of that threat but stand in the way of action for the sake of short-term profits or political expediency are, in a real sense, betraying humanity. Yeah. Yep. And then he goes on to say that, the world's failure to take action on climate change is unexcusable, but also understandable. And he talks about just how hard the politics of climate change are, and he lists a bunch of reasons. And then he ends it on this note, and he says, and if we can't save the Great Salt Lake, what chance do we have of saving the planet? Yeah, wow, that's really, really dark and depressing. But as I've mentioned before, I'm an optimist. I believe that we can change things. I, of course, don't know exactly how we can change things, but things have to change, and I believe that we are on the cusp of a paradigm shift, right? I'm here for the paradigm shift. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we have to start valuing something other than money. We have to be thinking in the long term, right? Short-term profits. That's the reason why we're in this mess, short-term thinking, greed, and apathy. And all that has to change. We have to change it. So that is what fuels my work here, because I believe that through agriculture, through sequestration of carbon, through making everything from plants, we can not only reduce our emissions, but we can pull carbon from the atmosphere and get carbon to work for us rather than against us. So anyway, that's where my dedication to the hemp industry comes from, because this is too important to just be like, la la la, I'm going to go watch Netflix now. We gotta do something. Anyway, and you're with me on this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this show. You feel the same way. We need to figure out how to reach other people, to get other people paying attention, to get people pissed off enough that they want to make a change in their lives, whether it's their consumer behavior or their transportation or whatever. But we also we have to get corporations and government, and we need to be working together. All right, I'm going to climb off my soapbox now and get into today's interviews about spring planting, because what more hopeful thing is there than you're going to put some seeds in the ground, and you're just going to hope that they come up and give you a crop. And the perennial hope of agriculture. Okay, that's enough of me babbling. Let's just get into it. We're going to talk to Theo Wahquahboshkuk from Prairie Band Ag out there in Kansas. I met Theo last summer on the National Hemp Tour, and then I saw him again in Denver a couple of months ago. So it was great to connect with him. So we'll hear his interview, and then we'll just roll right in to the interviews after that. So I'll see you on the other side. Theo Wahquahboshkuk, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Doing very well, Eric. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
so you're the operations manager for Prairie Band Ag, LLC in Holton, Kansas. And that's, why don't you tell me about Prairie Band Ag?
Yeah, so Prairie Band Ag, we're in our second year of operations.
Okay.
It is a subsidiary to Prairie Band LLC, which is wholly owned and operated by the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation.
Okay, and tell me where that is. Tell me a little bit about the reservation.
Yeah, so we are located in northeast Kansas, Marietta, Kansas. Within our borders, we have 121 square miles. The nation, we have control of about 40,000 acres of that. So just about half of what's within our boundaries.
Okay. And so you said this is your second year of growing hemp. And so tell me, well, let's first just talk about like what different varieties of hemp you're growing and how much you're growing.
Yeah, so 2022, we are doing about 5 different varieties and a little over 200 acres. Have a couple French varieties, a couple Polish varieties, and then a variety from here in the States.
Okay, and that's fiber, grain, flour. Where are you in that spectrum?
We're growing for dominantly fiber herd grain as well. We're looking to dual purpose a lot of these crops, of course, to get the most out of them. And then also doing some floral side of things as well.
Okay, and have you planted yet this season?
We are currently in the process. We're starting late, but still getting our acres in. We've been getting hammered with rain over the past month. I think I looked up the USGS reports, and it was about 2 inches a week of rain over the
Wow.
course of the past month.
And that makes it hard to get into the fields.
Correct.
Is that like normal rainfall, or is this sort of weird for you out there?
That's pretty typical for the time of year, of course, and with hemp, you kind of gotta, or in farming in general, you gotta kind of plan around Mother Nature. So
Sure. All right. So you're actively planting now, and do you have most of it in the ground, or you're still partially complete, or how far along are you?
yeah, we have currently 110 acres that are already in the ground and approximately 90 acres to go.
Okay. And what is your planting method? You drilling that?
Yes, we are drilling that, no-till drill, 10 foot on 7.5 inch rows.
Okay. What was in the field before, like the no-till? Do you do a cover crop?
Yep. So we do a cover crop shortly after we harvest and kind of let that grow up until we go to prepare the fields in the following year.
Okay. Talk about that mix, like the cover crop mix. Or I assume it's a mix, but what do you got?
Yeah, we had some folks put together a mix for us, kind of a variety of grasses and different things, just to kind of aerate the soil, give it some cover, of course, and then just a cover crop blend.
Okay. All right. So you and I met for the first time in South Bend, Kansas last summer at the South Bend Industrial Hemp like open house there with the Baldwins.
Yeah.
And then we ran into each other again in Denver for the NOCO conference this year. And you were telling me about the decortication system. Are you still installing that, or is that operational yet?
Yeah, that's still being installed. We're just putting on some final touches on the power side of things, kind of running the conduit, and we're hoping to be fully established and operational within the next month here.
Okay. And is that a Formation Ag? Is that one of the 660 fiber tracks?
Yep, we have the full line of the FiberTrack 660 from
Nice.
Formation.
Right. And I assume they're great to work with. They're helping you put it all together. Yeah.
Yep, we've been having some great relationship with them.
Good. Now, how does hemp fit into like the overall plan and goals for the nation?
Yeah, so getting into industrial hemp, it was kind of almost like an obligation to try new rotational crops, and just with the how hemp is for its regenerational properties, what it does to the soil, and its uses, its end use for all the renewable products. It's just kind of something that I think a lot of people really believe in. And
right. And with the decortication system, will you be contracting other acres from other area farms, or how will you be feeding that machine?
Yeah, as we expand ourselves on our operational side, we also want to get the local farmers interested as well. So that's kind of our focus going into the remainder of this year, this growing season, is to do some outreach, some education, and kind of start recruiting and seeing if more people will be interested in growing that crop. Being us here with the processing facility, they have somewhere to sell it and take it to.
Right. And then, so what are you going to do with the fiber and hurd once it's processed?
So that's we're still kind of working out that side of things, but we do have a lot of the stuff spoken for all of the raw materials, all of the hemp plant's constituent parts, the fiber hurd and the grain.
So I'm curious how, like the tribal elders feel about hemp. And the reason I ask that is that last summer when we were on the National Hemp Tour, I was speaking to Marissa Bumgardner. She's a member of the Umatilla tribe in eastern Oregon. And her husband John were trialing hemp off of the reservation because the tribal elders wanted nothing to do with hemp. They thought it was just marijuana. And what they were doing was trying to show to them that, no, there's so much potential here. So I'm curious if you have, a similar situation there, or, what it's like.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about education. I remember when I was young, I'm only 32 years old, and the generation before that, there was, you saw that leaf and you immediately associated it with things other than hemp. And so it's really just education. I mean, there's still kind of that mentality around the older generations of what hemp is and what it isn't,
Right.
kind of associating it with marijuana still, which...
Yeah, it's not. It's just like marijuana should sort of be like a little footnote to the larger potential of hemp, in my opinion. So what else should listeners know about growing hemp in the Potawatomi Nation?
We're super excited for the 2022 growing season. We're expanding every year and just looking to keep on growing.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, Theo Wahquahboshkuk from Prairie Band Ag, thank you so much for your time today. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for having me.
All right, from Kansas, we're going to travel east a little bit to western Maryland. Catherine Dubansky from Backbone Hemp in Garrett County, Maryland. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure. I've been listening to your podcast since the very beginning, so I'm honored.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here today. I wondered if you could sort of give us an introduction to yourself and your farm, and then we'll talk about what sort of hemp you have in the ground.
Sure. So my husband and I have been here since 1999. We have about 100 acres up in the mountains of southwest Maryland, which is kind of sandwiched down in West Virginia almost, about 2,600 feet elevation. And so we've just been building our farm up for a while using organic practices to grow produce, and we do gourmet mushrooms and livestock, kind of specializing in pastured pigs. We've got some beef cows and meat chickens, and we do cut flowers. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
We're now farming with our oldest daughter, too, who's our livestock manager. And, kind of just using organic, sustainable, and regenerative techniques. A lot of words there.
Good words. I'll argue they're good words, yeah. Cool. Well, that sounds like you have a lot going on. And when did you get into growing hemp?
In 2018, when it was legal for us here in Maryland. We got a research permit and started out real small, but we've been growing every year since.
All right. Why did you want to get into hemp in the first place?
My husband and I have always been, cannabis supporters and been waiting for hemp to become legal for a long time, just knowing that it can be a really beneficial crop for both farmers and the planet and kind of a lot of things in general. So we were just sort of waiting for that to happen and always looking for something different to do on the farm. just decided that it was really something that was calling to us. So when it was time, we were ready.
All right. And do you have like a full suite of like CBD products? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We do. I've heard it called seed to shelf. So, we do start here growing our seedlings and growing out the hemp here. And then we've developed a full line of smokable products and tinctures and topicals and gum.
Cool. So. Nice. Where have you been sourcing your genetics?
Well, this year, and last year, we were growing Oregon CBD. We got a bunch of seeds from them. The year before, we got one variety from Stanley Brothers out in Colorado, and we're able to find some other just kind of here and there. Yeah. But this year, we're sticking with Oregon CBD.
Okay.
And for our CBD seeds.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. What are you planting this year?
Sure. So we scaled back a lot this year, trying to just not grow more than we need, because I'm sure the other farmers out there can identify with maybe just having a little more than you needed. And because we've got a nice supply of full spectrum distillate in stock, we just decided to go with a small amount of triploid genetics this year.
Oh, yeah.
Because of some other plans that we have for growing fiber hemp on the farm. So we wanted to try something that wasn't going to be able to, be seeded. So we went with 3 different varieties. We've got a sour Suver Haze, a sour Lifter, and one that's called Forbidden V, which is really supposed to be high in CBDV, which is another minor cannabinoid.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I talked to Seth from Oregon CBD, I guess must have been last year, about the triploids. But you're the first grower that I've talked to that's actually, growing them on the farm. So how was, I imagine you've planted already?
Well, actually, they're just in the greenhouse right now, or I pulled them out of the greenhouse today. We started them in 4-inch pots, and they're ready to go in the ground. We just have been waiting for the right weather to get them in. Yeah.
Yeah, but good emergence on those?
Oh, they're beautiful. Yeah, we had about 100% germination rate, and they look lovely, and yeah, they're ready to go.
Cool. All right. So you'll get those in the ground hopefully this week, depending on the weather?
That is the plan. Yeah, the ground's ready and waiting on the right day.
Right. So how much will that be? Like can you talk, like how many plants?
We only started 400 this year.
Okay.
Which, let's see, last year we did a half an acre, which was about 1,400 plants. So it's a real cut down in numbers, but those are all going to be hopefully nice smokables, some new varieties to add. I'm not sure if we'll get any biomass out of that or not.
Yeah, but that's got to feel good that it's just like slightly more manageable, right?
Yeah, we're excited about it because I think we'll be able to, really take much better care of them and hopefully have just like a really nice yield, and hopefully that'll be plenty. Yeah. And it'll also kind of cut down on our harvesting time, which in the past has been pretty enormous chunk of time spent harvesting and drying and hanging plants and everything. Yeah. So, yeah, we're looking forward to having a little bit of a break from that.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're trying some fiber this year. Can you tell me about that?
Right. So that's one of the main reasons why we cut back on our CBD, is because we're going to grow half an acre of fiber hemp. We've chosen a variety from King's Agri-Seeds. Sarah Mitchell helped us to pick out the variety that we're going to grow, which is called Joey.
Okay.
And I believe it's a slightly shorter variety that may have some better seed production, but can also be used for fiber herd.
Cool.
So we're just going to add that into our rotation. We've got some half-acre strips that we rotate between hay crops and some vegetable crops. And last year we had it planted in winter wheat.
Okay.
So then we just have disked it down. We're getting ready to plow it and disc again, and then use an old seed drill to drill it in.
Cool. All right. I'll give a shout out to King's Agri-Seeds. They are one of our sponsors. So, yeah.
Yeah, Sarah was extremely helpful. She's great. Partner Kyle and was just really got us going in the right direction.
Good. And then when do you expect to harvest that fiber?
I believe that it's about an 80-day crop.
Okay.
So if we get that in this week or maybe next, then I suppose that would be end of September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the plan for that once
well, the plan is really I just wanted to do it because we are really trying to promote industrial hemp in our county as a viable crop for farmers.
Yeah.
But as of yet, there hasn't been anyone really in the county to put in a good stand. And I just figured it was time to move forward, to get started with it. So my hope is that we may be able to combine some of the seed, but then really just to mow it down and bale it up and stash it until we've got something to do with it.
Right.
So mostly as an experimental crop.
Okay. And how do the farmers in Garrett County, how do they feel about hemp in general?
I think they feel like there's potential, but they're not quite sure, whether it's something they want to get into or not. We've got a lot of farmers up here who are doing dairy and then, raising corn, soy, hay. So it could be something that really could fit nicely into their rotation.
Sure.
Give them, one more thing. And I feel like that there are many people who would be receptive to it. We just need to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. And then we need processing capacity all over the country too, right?
Processing capacity, and that is something that we're putting a lot of energy up to here. We've got a little organization called the Mountain Maryland Hemp Alliance, just a very small group of people who are dedicated to really trying to make something happen up here as far as processing facility. So, looking to the future to really start making that happen very soon.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you got a lot going on. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners about hemp down there in Garrett County?
Well, just that it grows really well here, and we have, a few farmers up here who are really dedicated to it and really seeing some positive results with our customers locally, which has been fun to have it at the farmers market and hear back from folks who really say it's making a difference in their life. So that's been really exciting and rewarding.
Yeah, that's got to feel great to know that you're having that effect.
It really is. Yeah, it's another nice thing to be able to offer our customers.
Yeah. So you sell primarily at farm stands, farmers markets, but you do some online retailing too?
Yeah. Our farm, has been going to the farmers market up here forever, so we just have brought that along. But we're in a few retail shops in the area, and we have, an online store. And so we do a lot through our website, and do some pretty good market sales.
Cool.
And we have an open house day once a week here where people can come and visit our little hemp headquarters on Fridays from 10 to 6, and they can come shop here and see the plants and check the farm out.
Nice. What's the origin of the name Backbone Hemp?
We are in the foothills of Backbone Mountain, which is a north-south ridge in the Appalachians. It's actually the Eastern Continental Divide. So everything that runs to the east of us goes to the Chesapeake Bay, and everything that runs on our side of the mountain goes down into the Gulf of Mexico. So Backbone Mountain is where we're at.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a nice spot.
All right. Well, Catherine Dubansky, thank you so much for your time today. It's great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for all your work, Eric. Appreciate it.
All right. From Maryland, now we're going to travel to Alaska. Ray DePriest from SunRay Hemp in Alaska. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast.
Good morning. Thank you. Beautiful day.
Yeah. So why don't you first tell us where you are exactly?
Okay. So I'm in a town called Palmer, Alaska, and it's about 60 miles north of Anchorage. We're in the Matanuska, Susitna borough. We go by boroughs, and our borough's about the size of West Virginia, a little bit bigger.
Okay.
So, I grew up on a dairy farm here. Went away to college, came back, was an ag teacher, science teacher, worked in public schools for like 33 years, and then in 1987, my dad decided no more dairy, so we were a dairy producer for 50 years. And then in 85, I started farming with him hay. So we're primarily a commercial brome, man-child brome hay. We've also grown polar brome, and had all this land and equipment, so we converted to hay, and then got excited in industrial hemp. It's just the state and our legislators, and hats off to a couple key players that pushed that through, and our current director at the Division of Ag, Dave Shady, and Rob over there at the Plant Material Center. And so I'm going into year 3 of growing industrial hemp.
Okay, wow. So you must have a few challenges that folks down here in the lower 48 never face. You know, I imagine like sunlight is kind of an issue, and temperature. So
given that we're considered semi-arid, and so I only throw that out there because if you're a hay farmer, and we have a lot of hay farmers, hay producers, that there's dry land and irrigated. Of course, we're irrigated. Now, this last 2 weeks, we had a beautiful run of sun. We were pushing the high 70s, and that's pretty early for us to get that kind of heat the last 2 weeks, and it's kind of cooled off this week. But, the biggest challenge is we're like an island, sort of, kind of like Hawaii. If you want to do anything, it's freight. It always comes down to freight, getting equipment, fertilizer, etc. Here. And so the first year I grew X59. I got my seed from IND Hemp. Ben Brinlow there and Ken Elliott were very helpful.
Yeah.
I didn't get my first crop in until like June. Let's see, it was late. The law didn't officially pass, and I was like the test guy for the state to get all the paperwork through. So I've got the first grower, processor, and retail license in Alaska.
Nice.
And got my seed, and we planted, and of course I wasn't sure what to do, and it turned out perfect because this was seed that was X59 needs dark, right, to finalize what it does. And so I was a little worried, but I didn't get seed in the ground until actually June 20th, which may seem late to people.
Yeah.
But with our photo day lengths, we're pushing close to 19 hours of daylight. So
wow.
That's the big difference is we have a huge photo day length, and of course the 21st is the longest day of the year, and it just will not dark here at all. It just grows. So things are booming.
Okay.
So it was late, and then it grew, and then it worked out perfectly because I needed about 8 hours of dark, and I didn't harvest until like into September. Second year, I did a little Jinma. I did a little bit of Halesia.
Okay.
And then we also did some, what's the other one? It's Helena, and I got all that from IND Hemp. And then this year, I wised up and I tried a bunch of Auto CBD, Alpha Explorer, and from Sarah Mitchell there at King's Agri-Seed. She's very, very helpful. You need she's excellent. Top notch.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're growing, and so I'll just share that, the first year was 1 acre, second year was about 4, and I'm about, 10 times that. So I also have a little plot, and it's not in the ground, and I'm not worried about it just yet, up in Delta Junction, which is 64 degrees north. And so, what's been a blessing is, Eric, your show, the Lancaster Industrial Hemp podcast. I got involved with the Global Hemp Association. I got involved with the Hemp Builders Association, Hemp Feed Coalition. And, I just start my day and I get out and go to work and I listen to all the good things that are coming out of the continental U.S. So I hope to have a small processing line on board this year. Andrew Bishop, I believe, out of Agricultural Solutions there in Montana. He's been very, very helpful, pointing me in the right direction. And of course, it's nothing of the scale that everybody else is doing, but I hope to have this nut cracked where I can really, really get after it in a serious way. So
yeah, good. Well, yeah, I was wondering what the plan was because that X59 that's a grain variety, right? But it's also got some fiber along with it. So what are you doing? You just baling that up and stashing it for now, or?
No, I pressed I pressed the seed. Let's see, what did I get? It was about an acre, and I got about 1,500 to 1,800 pounds. I don't have my notes in front of me.
Sure.
And Sharon, I'd have to get that.
That's all right. Just ballpark it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just call it 1,500, which is pretty good. I thought for first year, and then I've got a little press, and I pressed it for oil.
Okay.
And, I'm not of the scale like, some of these other big producers, but I'm putting things together. Probably what is, what's working out for me is I'm collecting some pretty good data. I've got some good data now, year 1, year 2, and year 3 of, what's working for me. And there's other growers. There's a guy in Homer. I do have some of the Sarah's seed in, are in 5-gallon pots, like in a little high tunnel. And so that I should be able to get 2 crops, right? Because it's a day neutral, and
right.
it'll boom and all. That's a biomass. And as far as equipment, I'm just using our old hay equipment. It's nothing fancy. I got an old combine, but I just have an old forage chopper that this year I plan on just going out and field chopping a whole bunch of it, and then I have a way to dry it down, and then I have a way to separate it so I get the seed, the stalks, if you will. And it's not like we're doing anything fancy with the herd and the fiber yet. I'm just really after the seed and the biomass. So
okay. Cool. Well, that sounds amazing. This is quite an interesting perspective here to talk about hemp in Alaska. So thank you for your time today, Ray.
Yeah, you got to try and get out there and go. We have we're known here in Alaska for a cabbage called the OS Cross, and then the squash and pumpkin. And so there's a big way off at the fair where these guys basically get these starts, and then they drip feed all summer with a photo day length, and it just grows. And I'm talking big. And so, but in my area, Palmer, we also have a lot of vegetables, a lot of potatoes, so all the cold crops, and those are transplanted, row crop. And then there's 4 or 5 big, hay producers like myself, and of course we got beef cattle. And I if it wasn't for the research that's been going on in America and being able to tap in over the web and participating in forums on the internet, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So a big hats off to all those people that are willing to share. The gal there at South Bend Industrial Hemp,
Melissa. Yeah.
Yeah. I listen to everything I can get my hands on. My wife says, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, it's like free education, man." I keep it up. So Eric, when are you going to come to Alaska? Let's go fishing.
Oh, I would love that. Not sure when, but when I figure that out, you'll be the first to know. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a time in my life when I used to fish commercially, and I fished in Bristol Bay. And I'll give a quick kind of a back end story. So my granddad came here as a young man as part of the Colony Project in 1935. And there's a whole big history, part of the New Deal Act, President Roosevelt, and there was men of the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. But, the Hoover Dam, all of this was being built back then. Well, there's a group of families that came here, and that's how my family came to Alaska. But he ended up planting potatoes, and then he would go fish in Bristol Bay. And I bring that up because this year in Bristol Bay, and I'm going to throw out some names. You ready? Yep. There's the Naknak-Kwijak. There's the Ugashik. There's the Igigik, Nushagak, and Togiak. There's 5 big bays that make up Bristol Bay, which is the largest salmon run in the world. Well, they're predicting a huge, huge run. And so I kind of keep my eye on that. Copper River, red salmon, or king salmon are coming now. And so, yeah, there's 5 species. Salmon's kind of a big thing. It's they're migratory. They come, and
sure,
it's fun to keep track. So anybody that wants to go fishing, when they come to Alaska, look me up. We'll talk and have some fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you have specific questions, Eric?
Well, no, that's great. This is fantastic. I just wanted to, I'm sort of doing a like a farmer check-in just to see how planting is going for this season. So I did that on last week's show, and I'm trying to do it again this week. So I'm just sort of tapping into my network, and I'll mention that I met you in person in Denver at the National Farmers Union convention back at the end of February, and that was great. It was such a wonderful group of people there, and you were like the only hemp farmer I think I met there, and so that was great that you were like, hey, I listened to your show. So thank you for that.
No, you do a wonderful job, and the body of knowledge that's coming out, it really is. It's just impeccable research, I think. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. All right, Ray, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, so I'll let you get back to it. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
All right, from Alaska, we're going to head home to Pennsylvania. Caleb Kauffman from Lancashire Hemp Farms. Welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of calling around and talking to hemp farmers in Pennsylvania and, around the country too, just to check in to see how spring planting is going or what your plan is for the season. So what's happening there at Lancashire Hemp Farms?
Yeah, it sounds good. Love to share. So right now we have a cover crop out in the field, the 2 acres we're going to be planting in this year. I've got like a little spring mix out there, so we'll cut that in July, and then we'll till it up, and then we're going to do a 2-acre plant. I think we have about 6 different strains we'll be doing this year, and then we also have a 1,000-square-foot hoop house that we just got up a couple weeks ago, and I'll be doing a small autoflower run there starting in the next couple weeks as well.
Nice. So what's the thought behind waiting, sort of until after the solstice to plant?
Yeah, my experience with working with hemp so far, I've always found my preference is to plant later just because, we're focusing on the top shelf smokable flower.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to plant later because that saves us having a giant plant, that's kind of too tall to work with, a lot more biomass stalk material. So I like to plant a little later. It keeps the plant a little shorter to put a little more nutrients and energy into the flower.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of the varieties that you're going to grow this year?
Yeah, I'll try to remember them. I don't have them in front of me, but I think offhand we're going to be doing Electra, Lifter, Sour Lifter. We'll be doing, like I said, a little autoflower in the greenhouse, just like a high CBD flower.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the other 3. I think we're going to be doing a CBG white, and then we're going to be doing another CBD V strain. We did 2 of those last year, and we really liked working with those. I think we're going to be doing the Pine Walker for CBD V strain again. And I think that's about it. I might be missing one, but
okay. Where are you sourcing your genetics from?
Yeah, right now we're sticking with the Oregon CBG genetics out of Oregon. I've used them a couple of years now and really like just how they fit with our area, and they seem to do very well and have nice, strong genetics. Not a lot of males overall. So yeah, we found a pretty good seed to work with.
Cool. I was talking to a grower just yesterday. She's down in Garrett County, Maryland, sort of like, Western Maryland. And she's planting the triploids this year. Oregon CBD came out with their triploids last year. Have you thought about growing those?
I did look at it. I didn't decide to get any this year just because we tried the CBDV last year. Like I said, we really liked that. So I wanted to stick with those. And I haven't we decided not to go with it this year, but I'd be interested to see her experience. Yeah,
right. I'm curious too, because it's like, it's like naturally seedless and a slightly larger plant. So yeah. Curious about that. So what else is going on with Lancashire Hemp Farms? Anything of interest to tell us?
Yeah, I'd say we've been leading the way and trying to establish fair trade hemp pricing. So I've been doing a lot of work online and just through our network of buyers and sellers. So sadly, what that looks like is really just doing, lots of holding the line at prices, trying to bring the market up to where we can create a sustainable hemp industry. So we've done a lot of good data collecting over the last 3 years. And I've put a lot of that out on the internet just to say, hey, here's pricing, for a farmer of what this costs to grow and, to harvest dry and then become available for, at least a biomass or a flower. So we're working, doing that. Things are going well, finding some like-minded companies. And then as always, we're just expanding the retail brand to support the local farming co-op so we can continue to, share the kind of industry with our local farmers here. Cool. Do you have a network of farmers that are growing for you, or do you do all of your own growing? It's a bit of both. So we don't have anybody actively growing yet. We're in discussions. We're on the verge of some potential grow contracts even for this year. So we're going to see where those things land. As of now, we're not asking any of our farmers to grow, but we do have about 15 mainly Amish farmers that are kind of under the Lancashire co-op umbrella, and kind of waiting until we can establish, those fair trade prices and then pass that along to everybody. Good. And then you mentioned retail. Where are you retailing your products? We're kind of all over, the South Central PA area here. You'll find us in a lot of health and wellness, some head shops, just different spaces where you'll find hemp products. And then we've been fortunate enough to branch out, a little bit into Maryland, Delaware. So we are starting to get to spread out and, share a little bit of our product and story and represent what Lancaster's all about, at least from a hemp standpoint. Cool. That sounds awesome. All right. Well, Caleb, it's great to catch up with you. And, thanks for sharing all that with us. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for checking in and letting me share. Yeah. Well, I hope you have a great growing season, and I look forward to the next time we connect. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. All right. So just one more stop on our journey today. We're headed up to Montana. Ben Brimlow, lead agronomist at I&D Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana. How are you doing?
Doing well, Eric. Great to be on your podcast and excited to be talking hemp with you today. Yeah. Well, welcome back. I know we spoke. I saw you last year in Montana, and then we spoke, I guess, the year before that. So I'm calling around to different operations to see how planting is going this spring. So I wondered if you can sort of give us an overview of what's happening there with your farmers in Montana. Yeah. In Montana, we've been getting acres in. In fact, all but, one more farmer have planted their fields. I think he's got a good 400 acres to go. But other than him, we've got 25 farms in the ground, and most of the stands are up and rolling. So it's a successful spring so far. It has been, we have been battling drought in north central Montana where most of our producers are. And that's been quite the challenge. Whereas on either side of Montana and southern Montana getting too much rain, we're in a pretty severe drought in north central Montana. Right. How many of your acres are, under pivot or irrigation? We're about a third of our acreage is under pivot irrigation, between a third and a half. Okay. And all of those are fiber. So we're raising those for industrial fiber grades. There will be no grain harvested off of those fields. Oh, okay. So what variety is that? You had been growing, what was that, like X59? And that's a grain variety. But yeah. What's your fiber variety? Yeah. So last year we did our first commercial run with industrial grade, fiber hemp. We had been doing grain hemp the previous years, and finally did some. I think 5 farms grew Jinma last year. Oh, okay. This year we're mostly doing Yuma and SS Beta for our fiber hemp. We liked how Yuma grew last year, and we've been getting a lot of good feedback from producers around our region into North Dakota and Michigan and such, as well as our own data from last year showing Yuma being a good fit. Oh, good. Okay. Of your growers this year, are they all like return growers, or do you have some new folks in there? Yeah. So most of our grain growers are return growers. In fact, I think there's only one or two that are new growers. Okay. Of our fiber producers, we're about half and half of return growers, and then adding an additional few farms of new producers who have not raised fiber hemp in the past.
Okay. And what sort of questions do they have for you, the new people coming in?
Yeah. So, of course, the biggest question is the economics and the compatibility with their other commodities such as malt barley and winter wheat and canola, which are this year are at near record highs for prices.
Yeah.
And then once the economics are figured out and that's established and contract terms are reviewed, then we get into the nitty gritty of the agronomics. As far as planting timing, seeding rate, what fields to grow it on, where it fits in their rotation, what chemistries are options or not, nutritional requirements of the crop, water requirements, etc. Yeah. So we get to dive into that, but that's usually after they determine they're ready to grow that crop from the financial aspect.
Right. Well, how does it fit into the rotation? Like, does it go well after certain crops, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, we find that hemp is a phenomenal rotation, especially with cereals or grain crops such as wheat and barley. Hemp does a phenomenal job at breaking up the disease cycle. Corn and wheat and barley, for example, are all grass types.
Sure.
And hemp is a broadleaf. So anytime you can break up that grass on grass rotation, you can really, or monocot would be the technical term, rotation, you really see a yield increase the following year.
Wow.
In fact, we've heard from many malt barley producers that they love to follow malt barley behind their hemp crop. They see yields that don't even compare to other broadleaf crops such as canola or chickpeas or peas, which are also good rotation crops, but they found hemp to be superior in rotation with their barley.
That's good to hear. You've got growers not just in Montana, but you've got some folks in Washington and Oregon, and where else do you have growers?
Yeah, so we focus on the Northwest. It's very similar production wise. Montana being our backbone, we're a Montana first company, and we want to support our growers, our neighbors, those around us. We do also work with producers in Washington State and Oregon. And this year we have one farmer contracted with us in Idaho and a number who are demoing and trialing, being that this is the first year hemp has been open to Idaho producers.
Right.
We also support growers and production in North Dakota and South Dakota, more from a knowledge aspect. We haven't contracted over there, but we have some partners and some industry partners over there, and that we like to support and build this industry together.
Yeah, you guys are great at that. I&D Hemp in general is always open, and I hear Ken Elliott saying, "Come on up and learn from us."
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good.
I'm so thankful for that collaborative spirit that is at the top of our company. We're really here to build an industry. We're that competition can come as we go, but build it up first.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. Anything else you want to share with us about planting out there?
Yeah. Well, I think for new growers interested in raising hemp, just the importance of knowing your buyer and having that lined up first is really important, unless you just want to test it and kind of play around with it. If you're wanting to go in, say 50 acres or more, just make sure to have a buyer lined up for that product. And it is an exciting crop to grow. I love this crop, and it's has such potential to change the world for better, that definitely worth growing it, but find some good partners to buy it and processors in your area.
Yeah, that's great advice. So thank you for that, Ben. Well, I know you're busy, so I'll let you get back to it. I appreciate your time today.
Equally.
And,
thank you so much, Eric.
thanks.
Love your podcast and love the work you're doing. Thanks for being a voice for our industry.
All right, there you go. That's it. It's time for me to get out of here. Thank you for listening. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. And speaking of Lancaster Farming newspaper, I've got our latest edition here in front of me. This is the June 18th, 2022 edition, and a bunch of great stories just right on the first page. There's a story about the politics of the school milk bills that are working their way through various state houses. There's a story about various ag secretaries and what they have to deal with in their states. There's a story about the machinery market and how it's hinging on inflation and interest rates right now. So all that and more. So check us out, get yourself a subscription. You will not be sorry. So anyway, you can get all that stuff at lancasterfarming.com. And also be sure to check out the show page for this episode because I'll have links to all of the various hemp operations that we just talked about on today's show. So, okay, until next time, I will see you in the newspaper. Season 2, Episode 23 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2022 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show is written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. Any music you hear throughout the show, as always, is courtesy of Tinbird Shadow.
Industrial hemp